You reach a certain time of the year, usually at the end of the year. It's always the perfect time to reflect on what has passed and set intentions for the future. But this year has been a doozy. 2025, it has been a doozy, and it has almost taken some of us out. So this reflection is going to last a longer period of time than what might be considered normal. With that being said, in terms of helping us to reflect back into our past, I have with me my guest today, Miss Devorah Brinckerhoff. Hi, Devorah.
Hey, Anne Marie. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. And welcome to our show. Welcome to About This Life. And the podcast is really what are the limiting beliefs that we have in our lives that is holding us back? And how do we release them so we can move forward, so that we can live the rest of our days well and in abundance? And so I welcome you and am pleased to have this conversation with you. I believe you have a message for a lot of our listeners out here. So, proper introduction, mixed media artist, and a transformational guide. That's a mouthful. Mixed media artist. What are we talking about? Are we talking sports? Are we talking art as in creativity? What are we talking about?
Creativity. Yeah, creativity and using your materials from lived experience to help you tell your story.
Oh,
So mixed
okay.
mixed media like letters, photos, journal entries, legal documents, the sort of ephemera of life that we
Okay.
collect.
The things that we collect. And thank you for that explanation as I reach for this and reach for that. And I'm just like, sometimes you have to do it messy because no sooner did I start talking, we were talking fine. And then it's like something came in my throat. I'm like, my goodness, why now? Why now? Why this moment? Transformational guide. Talk to us about transformational, that word, that term.
It's just, I think it reflects any time that we're moving through transitions and who do we become. When you think about your body and how many transitions, especially as a baby to a, I don't know, young adult, like there are so many changes and transitions that we go through. But I think we stop noticing them or just think that we're in the same body or in the same lived experience because we repeat patterns and we look the same to ourselves in the mirror. And so we just think we're the same, but we're changing all the time. So really it's about noticing those changes that are constantly underway, for better or for worse. And being able to acknowledge them allows us to have more awareness and then some agency around decisions that we make for ourselves.
Okay, Devorah, it's interesting because it feels like you have described me to a T. Because once I became an adult, I just thought it was natural I was going to be this way the rest of my life, which turns out not to be the case, which is a good thing because we want to change. We want to change that belief. So, as we're changing, what are some things that we have to look out for?
I don't know that there's anything really to look out for. I think if we notice repeated patterns in our life that or suffering or critical mindset or comparative narratives, like those things that really take our quality of life down, our well-being starts to drain out of us. It's those things that I would say, oh, it's important to have awareness around that so that we can change it. But I don't know that we have to, I mean, I guess that is something to look out for.
Hmm.
Yeah. So when we start feeling sad and depressed or anxious or fearful or heavy, emotionally, like the heavier emotions that keep us really from flowing and being fluid in our day-to-day life with joy and vitality and excitement and curiosity. Those are the ones that I want to reach for. And the other ones, if we're in a habit of some kind where we have a negative self-belief or a limiting belief, then those are the things that I want to shift and move out of my body, which is where I really believe lived experience lives in the body. And so when we feel ourselves contract, that's in the body. Um,
Okay, so my back pain, I have a lot of contractions then.
I
I
bet.
am tired. Let me tell you that lower
Yeah.
back pain, there's nothing like it. And sciatica, my goodness, there's a lot of things I can say about that. But I want to give you a real life example. So for example, grief.
Hmm.
Grief is not just about losing a loved one. It's not just someone who has walked this earth, they have died. There are other forms of grief. What are some things that we grieve about?
Well, I love that question, and I have such a temptation to turn it right back on to you and say, what are
Okay,
some,
okay.
what are some things that
Am
what
I
are
ready for this? Are you turning it back to me? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, we playing here. Okay. Okay. Um, let me see. And I might get emotional with this one. At the time of this recording, and insider's tip to our audience is a lot of times, podcasters will record and for a later release. But it happens to be the month, December, that I lost both parents
Mm,
many, many, many years apart. uh, how many years? Maybe 25 years or something of that sort.
mm,
But as it turns out, both my father, who went first, at a young age, he was like 59 or 60, he passed away. And then my mother passed away 4 years ago. And so December is heavy because on the East Coast, it gets dark early and it's cold and you just want to button up. But also the loss of both of our parents. And then I think, hmm, losing someone that you love is not the only thing that you lose. You lose a lot of things that go with it. So I'm going to stop babbling and let you let you jump in or ask me another question for clarity.
it's a really beautiful it's really beautiful what you're saying, and grief has such a life of its own.
Hmm.
It does not, as far as I have experienced, it doesn't want to be put into boxes or follow any kind of timeline that you would like it to follow. So,
Hmm.
right, like you can be in the grocery store and maybe you walk down an aisle and notice your mother's one of her favorite things to buy or
Hmm.
have in the house, and a wall of grief will wash over you. And so the things that you feel that you've lost in connection to, so not just her physical being, but it's the daily connection or however often
Hmm.
you had with her and your dad. And so we lose that, the fabric. We lose how the threads that are woven together. All of a sudden, it's just like all we have are memories. And
Yes.
and so the lived experience that is shared is gone. And that is a really hard thing to wrap our brain around. But I want to say our hearts around, like what happens? So
Hmm.
there's this empty place. So what do you do to fill it up? What do you do with that loss and longing and grief for yourself? Like, so when the time of year comes around and it's not just
Yeah.
the cold and it's the darkness
Mhm.
and it's the anniversary of somebody's life leaving. And so I feel like we have that sort of body memory of their passing. And so how do you contend with that as well? So there are just so many layers to it. But if you were to look inside of yourself, what are the things that you feel like you've lost in association with losing your parents? And as this time, well, now it's on you, but I think even as it approaches, there's all this
Mhm.
anticipation around loss. And is it going to be easier? Does it mean something if it's not easier? What if it's worse this year? What does that mean about me? Like we try and understand loss, and I just think it wants what it wants when it wants it.
When it wants it. I have more for you.
Okay.
Okay. Because it's part of my awareness in terms of evolving because one of the things that I do is, I have my own private business, Becoming Enough, Becoming You, in addition to the podcast. And what I hear from people is grief is also when you've been strong for too long. So that's not tied to a person necessarily, but it is tied to the fact that you can grieve yourself
Mhm.
because you have been there for everybody else. You've been the strong one, you've been the rational one, you've been the one holding everybody up. And then, aha, because I've done the inner child work and I have a sense that you have done some of that too in terms of looking at the patterns. We can tie that, connect that perhaps to fear of abandonment or what. So I'm turning it back on you so we get to play. So we're playing.
Yeah.
You're
There.
it. Tag.
Let's see. I think the fear goes deeper than the fear of abandonment. I think it eventually ends up, well, is tied to fear of death. So it comes back around to our not being held, taken care of, received. Who are we without those people around us? Who are we if we don't show up as the glue, as the supporter, as the rock, the rational one, the
Mhm.
smart, good, whatever? All of the identities that we have about ourselves, if those are externally created, which most of them are, we're all conditioned into our belief systems and our family network. And it just is like layer upon layer upon layer of how we come to understand who we are. And so, if those things, those external things, or even internally, our identity dissolves for whatever reason, what
Mhm.
then, right? So who are we without the ways that we used to understand ourselves? So if my well-being or my belonging is tethered to another person and they're no longer here, or it's tethered to a job, or it's tethered to looking a certain way, or it's
Mhm.
tethered to a certain amount of money, whatever it is, and those things are gone, we're grieving either those parts of ourselves or it gets really shaky if our sense of self is dependent on other people or other circumstances. It's very tenuous. It's not, what do we rely on? And so then it that sense of abandonment that you were talking about
Mhm.
before, I feel like it's all connected.
Yes.
And so when those things go away, like who do we belong to?
Who do we belong to? Who are we?
Mhm.
And who are we becoming?
I like.
In the absence of something leaving, you have quite some experience with this. And in terms of your children
Mhm.
and some unfortunate events that happened in their lives, and you have had to rebuild your life,
Mhm.
reassemble it, that's how you phrase it. Why did you have to reassemble your life? What event led to moving cross country from Vermont to Oregon?
Well, and I have zigzagged around the country
Hmm.
and also into to Europe. I was so there are so many questions in that question, so many
Wow.
answers. You might have to go back and
Unpack it for us. Go. Let's go. We good.
um, I I I love Vermont and I love New
Mhm.
England. Um, and in Oregon, it gets dark here really early too. And I kind of like it. It's sort of cozy, and I love the rain. So I'm really in a good place geographically now. But that's a
Mhm.
side tangent. Okay, so where do you want to start?
Start with
I
the children.
So my children were sexually abused at a very young age, and it took us a while to figure out the who. But when we figured out the who and we talked about it, uh, it first was okay, and then within 24 hours, it was not okay. And
Mhm.
one family member in particular just called up every single person we knew and told them that I particularly was crazy, and we ended up getting sued by my husband's father and stepmother and my parents, and I was excommunicated from my family. Um,
So why do they think you're crazy? Because you believed your children or
that's a great question, and I think really, I think so. There's the answer that they would give, which is
mhm.
like, we can't have this be true, or we just don't believe you. Like, you're happy, your children are happy, so it didn't happen. Um,
Okay.
and but I
Denial.
the
Okay.
yeah, and but I think the broader umbrella is that um, sexual abuse, sexuality, our culture, we just don't want to go there. We don't want to talk about it. And the people that quote unquote, right, like the people that we think do these really horrible things
Mhm.
are terrible and they're evil and they look a certain way, and it can't be this person because, and it can't be that person because, when really we're just so uncomfortable talking about sex in a healthy way
Yes.
that it comes out sideways for people who never got a chance to talk about their own sexual abuse. Or I don't know, like there's so many different reasons why sexual abuse happens. But so we happened to live in Utah at the time, and Utah is well known for the Mormon church, and we are not Mormon, and our children weren't Mormon, but there's an enormous Mormon community there, and
Mhm.
sexual abuse is extremely prevalent in that state. Like it is I think last time I checked the statistics on it, sexual abuse was the highest in the country. And normally, of the abuses like emotional abuse, neglect, and physical abuse, uh,
Yes.
I'm those are usually higher on the scale, and sexual abuse is at the bottom. But in the state of Utah, that's flipped.
Mhm.
Um, and you're supposed to, like stay pure um,
Mhm.
and suppress your sexuality. And
Yes.
so it comes out sideways. And there are lots of other reasons too. I'm certainly not an expert in that in any way, shape, or form. So when we started talking about it and didn't suppress it, then that made people incredibly uncomfortable. And I think it's in the family, in the family. I'm pretty sure it's in the family, but I don't know. And it was never talked about. And so when I was like blowing the whistle on this on a very corked, buried bottle, it caused a lot of problems.
I'm sure. I'm
Yeah.
sure a lot of people started talking.
Yeah, they didn't like it.
How did you protect your children?
Oh, we ended up,
Excuse me.
you're you're good.
I know I'm choking up.
I mean, in the normal ways, like there was a part of, so therapy mostly. We took them straight into therapy, and we just, so, so it became the five of us really quickly, myself, my husband, and our three kids. And all we did was talk about sexual abuse and how to keep bodies safe and how to keep them safe. And we just became the five of us, like this little insular unit that brought us very, very, very close. Those first years were pretty devastating. We were really close to my husband's family. They were a lot of fun. And we went on
Mhm.
vacations with them and traveled a lot. It was fabulous. We always had a place to be and things to do, and we had a great time. So, the hard part isn't so much sexual abuse, especially if you support your whoever's moving through that journey, especially if they're able to really move it out of their body. That becomes a very insignificant piece of it, surprisingly.
Unpack that for us because you talk about move it out of your body. So if trauma and injury and all the things that go along with it, physically and emotionally, how do you move it out of your body? How do you reclaim it or reimagine it or whatever term one should do with such trauma?
Great question. And it's a very individual process. So,
Mhm.
whatever feels right to whoever is moving through that to get it out. So, we need to acknowledge it first and foremost. We need to, and if other people around us are denying it or shaming or blaming, then we really need to find support that says, you're not crazy, this did happen, and you have a right to feel however you feel. You can dance, you can cook, you can scream, you can break glass, you can rip up phone books, you can make art, you can
Right.
write poetry, you can um, usually it's something creative. A lot of people clean. Um,
Hmm.
so it's a physical, it's usually a physical movement that allows you to start releasing the trauma. Because it lives in the body. We contract in the body. Fear is in the body, danger. And so we need to address it. We need to acknowledge it, and then we need to release it.
Yeah, it's kind of like the fight, flight, or fright stages that one goes through. And it's interesting because there's a lot of cultures, there are a lot of communities where people often know the abuser,
Mhm.
but they it's like the abuser is protected because
Totally.
nobody wants to be the one that speaks up or says anything. What did that take for you? Um, something as serious as this happening to your children. What did it take in terms of facing that giant, if you would, facing that wall? I mean, how did you sum up the courage? What led you to get that courage?
Well, when we first figured it out, we were coming back from a vacation where the what who we believe had caused harm was a part of. And when that person left, my son in particular, his behavior just dissolved. Like it had escalated while this person was there, and then it dissolved when he left. And that's what indicated like that was the final piece of information where the puzzle fell
Mhm.
into place. And it was a 17-hour drive back. And my husband and I were
Yeah.
talking about it. My kid was um, like four. So like really little. And we were like, we can't suppress it. We can't pretend this didn't happen. And we were
Mhm.
terrified. And the biggest thing is that I know what it's like to suppress that. I know what it's like
Yeah.
to deny it. And I know what it's like to feel
How do
like,
you know it's like? How do you know it's like? Did it happen to you as well?
yeah, I grew up with a sexual abuse history, but I didn't know about it until I got pregnant with my first child. So it was a body memory. It was
Okay,
totally
Deborah. Okay, wait a minute. Need something stronger than water in this cup.
right. Go get yourself a whiskey or whatever it is.
Okay, wait a minute. So happened to your children, but it also happened to you. Did I hear baby involved? Did I hear
Yeah.
you didn't know about it? Is you didn't know about it? Is it because you were too young? You didn't know about it because it is a disassociation of your mind? What do you mean you don't know about it? And whose baby? Whose baby
Okay,
did you
so
have?
so I I
Spill
was
the tea.
I by all I don't it's okay. So I had a lot of trouble as a young adult. So I was fine-ish. I started to get pretty depressed as an 8, 9-year old. I hit puberty and I was like, "Oh shit. This is bad." I
Hmm.
terrified of it all. And really just became somebody who didn't have sex, somebody who didn't want to be kissed, somebody who didn't I would hold hands, right? And that didn't go over well for a lot of people as being enough. And that's fine, right? So and then I kind of went in the other direction. So my own exploration of my sexuality was a mess. And I was really lucky that I met my husband when I did. He he's a wonderful human being and my best friend and really
Mm,
saw the light in me. And so but I still didn't know. I had no idea. I felt like I had brought it up to a couple of therapists over the years and they're like, "Yeah, no, that didn't happen." And I'm like,
right.
"Okay, you must know." Um, and so when I got pregnant, I just freaked out. I was like, there's something in my body that should not be in my body. And you're right, I was too young. And the way that I had a couple of different jobs that involved babies. And when the husbands came to the house to visit their wives who were upstairs or their partners and their babies who were downstairs, the babies were HIV and drug addicted babies. And I would turn the dads away. I'm like, you're not coming in. And I had no right to do that. But whenever I saw a dad, I was like, they're dangerous. You're not allowed in. And um,
Mhm.
and then after I got pregnant, I was again freaking out. And then I gave birth and I would not let my husband hold this baby. And he's like the most gentle, lovely, beautiful human
Yes.
and I wouldn't let him do it. I left the marital bed. I took my baby with me, and we slept separately for the first year or so of her life. And I and and she started showing signs of sexual abuse. I didn't know about it at the time. Um, we took her to therapy because we had heard my husband's a therapist, and we took her to therapy because
God bless him. Yeah.
we heard it was a good idea to take her to therapy because we were expecting our second baby. And when my daughter was in therapy, the therapist came out and she's like, I think your daughter's showing signs of sexual abuse. I'm like, no, she isn't. That's crazy. You're totally crazy. And she said, she said, have you been sexually abused? And I'm like, well, I've thought
Mm,
about it before, but I don't think so. And she's like, I'd really like to talk with you more about this. And I'm like, all right. And it opened up this whole world. So I had started my own curiosity investigation of myself and my history with her and it really started to make sense. My life started to click into place. I didn't have any I didn't have any cognitive memories, but I had body memories, and I acted really strange around men and particularly fathers.
trust your body.
Trust your
Trust your
body.
body. Trust your body. My goodness. And so your children, that's a lot of heaviness to deal with.
It was.
And yet, as a guide, you help others to transform. So, how did you transform your life? You have something called soul. What's the last part of that?
Soul portrait.
Okay. Soul portrait. So, tell us how you transformed your life.
So
Um,
artwork for me and drawing and painting had always been my release valve. It was my first
mhm.
language. It was how I was most comfortable communicating with the world. So it had always been, I don't know where I would be if I hadn't had that I think it was constantly allowing me to let go of some of the stuff in my body all along. Went long before. Like
Hmm.
I was creating artwork that was so it was speaking so loudly and I had no idea. So I made a lampshade from and I used an image of a dead woman and I put it together like paper dolls and behind those that dead woman I put images of myself as a child and a young adult. And so when you turn it on,
Yes.
you can see both images. And I had no idea. I look at this
Yeah.
lampshade now and I'm like, it was screaming at me, but I wasn't ready to know what my body already knew. Um, and so we put my daughter back in therapy. We put my son back in therapy and they were working on it. And I luckily had enough years under my belt with myself that I could also hold space for them. And really, when I got that, the hardest thing, it wasn't the lawsuit, it was the letter of excommunication. And I was in my studio. I had all this material, love letters, hate letters, photographs, and legal papers, and I started ripping them up. And a couple hours in,
Okay, so before you talk about ripping up all the things, who's suing you?
oh, my parents and my husband's parents. So when we disclosed who was the one that we believe perpetrated against our children, when we
Mhm.
said who that person was and said we we're not like I don't believe in the judicial system. I don't think punishment helps anyone. I'm not saying
Hidden the recording. There we go. But you were talking about your wonderful husband.
uh-huh.
And because we were talking about the lawsuit. So anyway, parents have sued you.
Yep.
Your husband is a therapist.
Uh-huh.
And okay, we're gonna let that ride because we understand that legal matters. So take us back to the place where you're tearing up things. We did the lampshade,
Right.
okay? So now you're tearing up things, and I guess to get the anger out.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was just so distraught. I didn't know how I still do. I love my family. And I just was devastated. It was right before the holidays, so that grief you were talking about in the beginning, it was right before the holidays and I had no idea how I was going to function without the family I thought I'd always have. Um, so I didn't know what to do and I felt desperate and I started ripping things up and it was a way for me to, I think you said it in the intro, I was, what's the word? Just disassembling my life story and reassembling it on the canvas. It was such a natural, intuitive thing to do. And about 4 hours later, I was lighter, I felt like a different human. And it really made me start to ask these questions like, where did these messages come from? So I've just gotten this message that I'm so bad that I'm not worthy of being in the family anymore.
Hmm.
It's not just rejection, it's like complete and utter, you are inexcusable. That was the like so just inexcusable. And so unforgivable. And so I didn't know how to hold that. It was something I'd struggled with my whole life and now I had the evidence of it being true and I did not know what to do. And so I ripped it up and I was like, oh, that feels better.
Yeah.
And I can rewrite this. And if I can rewrite it, then what's real? Like what's actually true? This
Hmm.
person believes that with all their heart and mind and soul, and I believe something differently with my heart and mind and soul. Can we believe our own heart and mind and soul and not worry about the other person? Is that possible? And yes, it
Yes,
is.
it is possible. So, in terms of what is real and what is real about our lives, and we can create something different. We can create something different for ourselves, is what I'm hearing and listening to. And when I was listening to you, what came to mind is like you damned if you do and damned if you don't, because what are you going to do if your children are abused? Of course you want to protect, and of course you want to heal, but now you help other people heal too in terms of the soul portrait. So, let's play again. So I'm coming to you, Devorah. Am I coming to you in a studio in your home, or are you taking my portrait? What is happening? And what do
But
you see when you do?
those are great questions. So I can do this virtually and I can do it in person. And whether you're creating your own soul portrait or I'm creating one for you, it's the materials that are important to you that have had an impact on who you know yourself to be today. So if there's something in your body that feels stuck, then those are the things that we would lean into. I'd ask you a bunch of questions like
Okay.
are there things that feel hard to you today? Are there things that keep you up at night in your mind? Do you get
Hmm.
in loop patterns about certain limiting beliefs or false identities? And what do you want to do with those? Who do you believe you really are? Who do you want to become? How do we honor who you've been, understand who you are, and invite in a future that you see for yourself?
A
That,
future self.
yeah.
Okay.
So that's a soul portrait. And so I lead workshops, or I do commissions for people and they give me their materials. I get full access. I read them over for about a week or 3 to 6 weeks. Sorry, that was totally wrong. 3 to 6 weeks. And we do some writing prompts together. I write over them and then I do an over image. And it sort of pushes and pulls things into a timeline. What
Okay, so slow down for a moment, because what you're doing is reshaping in my mind what I thought a soul portrait was. So I literally thought it was a picture. That's how naive I was thinking. And I think that way because I have talked to people, and there have been people on the show who will take a portrait of somebody,
Mhm.
or I've had a fashion designer, and
Mhm.
they will make a woman feel elegant,
Mhm.
and so on and so forth. But when you say soul portrait, your questionings, your prompts is get into the innermost parts of ourselves
Yeah.
in terms of who we are. And then you bring it back to us and say, this is what I think is going on with you.
I really believe that you have your own answers and that it's all the noise and the confusion that have led us to believe that we think someone else carries our answer. And so the process really is about connecting to yourself. So while I have written prompts to say, I want you to think about who you are right now. I want you to think about a recipe or a photograph or a passage in a novel or a poem or your own free writing that encapsulates the truth of who you are now. You've
Mhm.
you, you've collected all this material, and it can be anything. It can be cloth. It can be metals. Like it can be anything that correlates with lived experience. That says I've lived through this. I've carried an
Mhm.
understanding in my body, and now I don't want to carry it anymore. I need to honor it and then release it by ripping it up, putting it down, anchoring it in time so that the past is the past. We only have now. We're always a bridge, right? And who are we now and who do we want to be? So the writing is really about who we are now. And the over image is like, what is an image that makes you feel your way into who you're becoming? So that, again,
Okay.
can be anything. So if people are making that for themselves, then it's whatever images pop in. And believe me, they pop in, and it doesn't matter if you can't draw. It has nothing to do with your skill level. it's all about the process. So it's your essence that we're getting at. We're not getting at what you look like. I love that people feel glamorous or however for a day or hopefully their whole lives. But in order to really sit in the seat of our glorious nature, we have to honor where what we're not giving space to. Otherwise, I feel like it's just another layer on top of. So like a
Hmm.
band-aid. And I don't want the band-aid. I want the real you. So who are
Hmm.
you underneath all the ideas of who you are?
So you're getting into the subconscious work.
Yeah. Well, and I'm letting them get in, like I would let you get into the subconscious work. If I'm doing one for
Hmm.
someone, then I feel it and I'm a witness to the energy of the materials that they provide me. I feel my way into it, but as a witness, it's a loving, compassionate, non-judgmental witness. And so whatever I give back to somebody is through that lens, and then they're witnessed as somebody who's just loved, right? No matter what their story is. And people have some pretty horrific stories and lived experiences that
Yeah.
they don't know how to carry, right? It's hard to
Hmm.
carry this stuff.
It's hard to carry this stuff. And what's the outcome? What's the is it letting go limiting beliefs and to have that um to have that so that one can live a more joyous or live in freedom? Um
Both. Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
The outcome
So,
is and more genuine. Like if we're really loving and accepting who we are, then it does not matter what another person thinks of us. It really doesn't. But
mhm.
first you have to forgive yourself. And at least that was my experience. Like I had to, that was my way through. Art taught me how to forgive myself. Creating taught me how to forgive myself. It had me ask the right questions and then like forgive myself.
Absolutely. And what's interesting about this line of work, because I've been doing some different projects, and that for some people it's hard to conceptualize because there are some people who are wedded and grounded in academia and
Mhm.
grounded in the science of it all. And I understand the creativity aspect and the power of creativity to heal your life.
Mhm.
And I want to affirm what it is that you're sharing because I have found it to be true as well. One of the things that I do is like arts integration curriculum. So we bring in music or visual art, drama, dance, and so on and so forth, spoken word. I'm a spoken word coach. And one will be amazed as the healing properties of all of these things that the rest of the world thinks is frivolous.
Yeah.
Or that's just an add-on. You can't take them seriously. So
Right.
I want to affirm your path, your journey in terms of helping others find themselves, coming back home to themselves. So in closing, what would you want listeners to know most about this work that you do?
That we're all creative. And when we tap into that creativity, no matter what it is, so if it's spoken word, if it's poetry, if it's dance, if it's music, if it's cooking, if it's cleaning, if it's gardening, um, I really believe that you're tapping into your divinity, to your inner wisdom, to the truth of who you really are. And when we do that, when we have the experience of going inward and hearing what comes out of that, it's
Mhm.
really hard to deny its power. It's really hard. And if and yeah, I've worked with a lot of people who are academic and come from incredible um, incredibly high-end careers who it's scary for them to try this.
Yes. Yeah, it is. Because it's like a letting go, right? And they're not used
Exactly.
to that
Yeah.
because the pattern in their lives is control and everything has to be just so and in a certain order. And if it's not, they're afraid, fear steps
Yeah.
in terms of what is this? Absolutely correct. Okay.
And like Pandora's box, like if I open this, what's going to happen? And I'm like, you will find nothing but peace and love on the inside of that box. You think it's horrible, but there might be some hard feelings, but my God, you've been avoiding them. And that is so much harder than anything you'll actually find in the box.
Absolutely. Absolutely, it will. Well, it has been a joy having this conversation with you. It has been a joy where we started talking about grief
Yeah.
at this time in our lives and moving through the idea that we need to release the patterns and all of these limiting beliefs so that we can be able to find joy
Yeah.
so that we can be able to find our way back to ourselves. I call it becoming. I love it. I love it. I love it. Miss Devorah Brinckerhoff. Well, thank you for being my guest today on About This Life. I would love, 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 love for our listeners as you listen to leave a comment, please. And also go ahead and share with your friends. Help them to open up to a new perspectives as we bridge into a brand new year. This might be something that you want to try. So, Devorah, how do people get in touch with you? How do they find out about you?
I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, and LinkedIn. I'm trying to think if there are any more. So Devorah Brinckerhoff or Soul Portraits, and you'll find me.
Okay, absolutely. This is Anne Marie, host of About This Life, where we are changing our lives one day at a time. Take care, everybody.